we can do it. So, well, thank you all for being here today with me. So I'm going to be giving a brief talk of just a recent experience we had in FinancialForce, the company I work for. So the experience was basically how we have been working to unify the permissions model, because we have a suite of different products that are developed by multiple teams. So basically what we did at a given point to try to unify this model and make it easier for admins. So just a little bit about myself, probably the least interesting part here, but I'm from Granada in southern Spain, born and raised. I have a background in telecommunication engineering. This is what I studied. Then I did a PhD, MBA, but finally I just started working for the private industry, and I joined FinancialForce in 2019 in the product team as a product manager. So I have worked in different products. I'll just talk a little bit about the products, but it's starting with one that's called order, procurement, and inventory. Basically buying, selling stuff, and put it in your inventory. And then I moved into the cross application, so communication between different applications. And then finally I'm a manager for different teams, like the foundations, which is the platform team for basically admin tools, the application to application, and then finally the third-party connectors, so external integrations. What I was planning to do today, so just give you a very brief introduction to FinancialForce, given the time that we have, and then just talk about the importance of reducing the time to value. So when you're doing an implementation, how important it is to reduce the time to value, because this is a very important decision for acquiring. Then the issues we had in the legacy approach we had for permissions, the new approach to permissions, and how we have done the process to implement this, from identifying the key personas that we serve until the personas, the permission sets and permission set groups are built. And finally, I will briefly talk. It's going to be a shame because I was planning to give you some screenshots of the tool we have, which is called Permissions Workbench. It's just a tool that helps admin to manage the permissions. And then I will talk just what's next, about what we're planning in FinancialForce for that. So, well, FinancialForce is just a services as a business solution that spans service delivery, finance, and customer success. And it is running on the Salesforce platform. So FinancialForce is built on the Salesforce platform, and it enables our customers to run a connected business with intelligence and achieving agility at a scale. It was founded in 2009 and headquartered in San Francisco, although it comes from a spin-off from Unit 4 in the past. And we have different products like Professional Services Cloud, Customer Success Cloud, PS Analytics, Services CPQ, ERP Cloud, which includes accounting, revenue management, billing central, or procurement inventory, fixed assets management. Then, yeah, all those tools around the financial management of a company. So, the importance of reducing the time to value. So, what is time to value? Time to value is basically the time from purchase of the product until it gets deployed and it starts to be used by our customers. So yeah, the key factor, it's actually a key factor when you're trying to buy something. Our customers are trying to buy something because they always, apart from the cost of the product, they always wonder how much it is going to cost to implement and deploy FinancialForce. So obviously, our products need to be designed to have a speedy deployment, because the faster they are, the less money customers will have to spend in the implementations, so then it obviously becomes more attractive, because you know that for ERPs, when they're implementing, the implementation process can take months, even up to a year. So then if they're especially migrating from another system, this can take a lot of time. So obviously, we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. So for doing that, we need to make the life of the consultants and admins easy. So how we can do that? Well, obviously, an important task of this implementation is setting up all the users and the permissions model. And this is one of the activities that typically consumes more time of the consultants and the admin, basically deciding with the customers which parts of the application these people need to see, the different teams. So it is normally quite cumbersome to achieve. So our goal is basically to have a simple plug-and-play model to deploy the users, and then start from the final configuration, the final customization from there. So what was wrong in the previous approach we had to permissions? So As I was saying, we have currently 52 development teams in the company, and in the past there were no clear or unified recommendations on how to implement all the permission models. So people were doing very different things. For example, using permission sets. Other people are not providing any permission sets. People were just like using profiles. So there was no clear model to define the content or the approach. So some people were saying, oh, I'm just going to base my permissions on a process. So this is a functional flow. This user needs to run. I'm going to do this. Others were just, no, I'm just going to do it based on the object. So I know these users need to access these objects. So I'm just going to be providing the permissions for these objects. Others were just like, oh, I know they need to access this page. So I'm going to be giving permissions to this page. So obviously, you can imagine for admins, this was really not the best way to go, because depending on the part of the application they needed to implement, the approach was completely different. This obviously resulted in more work for the consultants and the admins to figure out the features, the pages and objects that participate in every process. So it's the first time you are taking a look at the process that you know a user needs to use, but you know maybe what pages or what features participate in that process. So then maybe you need to go to the documentation to learn about that and then add it to the permission sets by yourself. Obviously, this is not plug and play, and it is especially hard to implement when deploying multiple products. And then obviously this leads to a longer time to value. So what did you do to change this? So obviously we all noticed we required a change of paradigm and to speed up the deployment of our products. So then we just tried to follow a user-centric approach. So we started basically by redefining, because we already had it, by just revisiting the taxonomy, the categorization of users, by creating personas that we basically assign to the flows that every persona is going to be used. So once we have the personas, then we are going to identify the jobs to be done. So what jobs these personas need to do on their day-to-day jobs. Then we have these jobs to be done, and then we assign it to the processes, the functional flows that we have in our products. Once we have this classification, personas, jobs to be done, and processes, then we started by defining the individual permission sets for each of these processes. So for example, create an inventory entry. This is a process. Then I can create a permission set for that. And then the final step was basically creating clusters of permission sets and including them into permission set groups. And what we did is that we named these permission set groups after the personas. So each permission set group will be then very easy to assign, because then when you get the initial list, you know, okay, my company, I have an account payable clerk, I have an account receivable, I have a warehouse manager. So then basically I can just directly assign that permission set group. And obviously I have some documentation that tells me all the processes and all the permissions assigned. But at least the initial part of the job is very easy. Obviously there will always be some requirements to modify some small tweaking the permissions, but at least the bulk of the task is already done. So as I was saying, we started with identifying the key personas. So you can see here all the personas that we currently have in FinancialForce. So basically these are all very common roles in like intermediate to like enterprise companies. So all different personas around obviously the processes that FinancialForce serves, like reporting analyst, resource manager, revenue manager, project manager, services operation, warehouse worker, and so on. So all these are categorized and then have this series of jobs to be done assigned to them. And here we go again. Okay, so the framework. As I was saying, we had this approach in which we were doing this process, this step-based process, and this was tasked to product managers in the company. So basically, every product manager of every product, of every part of the product, was told to follow this process. So start by thinking about the personas you have in your part of the product, start thinking about the jobs to be done, the processes, and then do all this categorization. So obviously, we just took the opportunity to describe all the processes thoroughly, so all the entry points, how to run them, and the expected result. We identified, very important, all the objects, all the fields, including lookups to other objects that participated in every of these processes, and including pages, buttons, tabs, applications, basically everything involved in all the metadata involved in the process. Then we identified the minimum permissions to the elements above to run the process, so just the bare minimum. And then in some cases, we were required to create some custom permissions. So basically, metadata that is only required to run the process, but if you as a user try to access it out of that process, you will not be given this access. So in every of these permission sets, we typically had also custom permissions, especially when there were interactions with other products. I want to protect the metadata of that product, but I want to have this metadata available to run some process within my application. So, and then basically do like a spreadsheet with all this categorization and then pass it to the development teams in order to implement. So, well, I was going to show you here a list of like different permission set names that we had. Finally, in one of our products, so the order procurement and inventory, we identified 438 different processes, and this totaled to 47 different permission sets. So these 47 permission sets were then clustered into a series of other permission set groups, which were the functional permissions that we finally were going to include, and it was basically less than 10. So with less than 10, you basically can identify and assign to these users, and they can be running all these 400 processes depending on their kind of role. For example, warehouse manager, warehouse worker, procurement clerk, and so on. And well, I was going to show you, if you're interested, I can show it to you later, just a screenshot of the Salesforce setup with permission set groups option, and then all the permissions set groups listed. So then we had also we were following a syntax with starting with a prefix with the product, then followed by the name of the persona, and then this was basically the way to identify very quickly, and I'm going to assign it to my user. Then what happens? Well, as I was saying, what happens when you have to do some light customization of these permission set groups? Because this would be like in an ideal world. Well, we provide this out of the box, and everybody's happy with it. Obviously, every business is different. They will have some custom fields. They will need to restrict access to other information. So then, typically, they're going to create a copy of this permission set group, local copy, and they're going to apply their modifications. So obviously, the moment we create this copy, when we do an upgrade, the changes are not applied to this copy. We need some tool to help the admins in every upgrade to know which permissions we have added to the new permission set groups, so that they can add them to their copies. So we have a tool that is called Permissions Workbench that allows to do that. So basically, this tool, what it provides is the possibility to compare different differences between field and object permissions in the selected permission sets, permission set groups, profiles, and users. So you can do the comparison at all those levels. So you can compare a user against a permission set. You can compare two permission set groups. You can compare one profile and another profile. So all those combinations are just basically, when you select them, you go to the next screen. You're going to see a list of all the objects and fields that are included in one and in the other one, and then highlighting the differences. And then we have a button that basically allows to merge those two, and you can select actually which ones you want to include in the merge. So by doing that, we very quickly provide the possibility of creating a new permission set group, a new permission set with all the permissions you were lacking. So obviously this reduces the time that it takes for the admins to do the upgrade and modify all the permission sets that they already have. We also have the possibility of exporting all these permissions in a CSV file in case you want to import them into a different environment, if you're moving from different staging, pre-production environments, orgs into your final production org. And then obviously this allows for import and export. Again, more screenshots of the tool. At least I had like 10. But well, it's obviously built on Lightning Web Components, and well, if you're interested, I can show it to you later. And well, let's continue. So what were the results? So this basically took almost 2 years to complete within the full suite of products. Obviously, as I was saying, we had more than 10 products. We had more than 52 development teams. then it was a lot of time for the product managers to identify, do all this process, and then to implement. But at this moment, we're now finished, and now we have a model which is more transparent and more homogeneous. And it has also improved the security of our products, because in all this process of implementation, there were a series of enhancements that were done. And then, as I was saying, we have now an out-of-the-box permission set group that can be assigned to users based on their role at the company. So, what was the beginning? I said that the outcome was to have faster time to value. Let's see if it lasts. So let's go back so I can show you the screenshots real quick before they disappear. So this is the permissions workbench. So you can see you have two selections. So on the upper part, you can select basically the first group that you want to compare to against, and then you have the selection 2, which can be multiple combination, not just one. So then you can see we have like an import, compare, and merge option. So you say, okay, let's compare. So if I want to compare, then I can see here what differences I have. So you can see that all these object names and object labels and the permissions that we have, they are not in the first selection. So you can very easily spot that you're lacking these permissions to these objects. So then if you want to just create a new permission set that basically includes all this, you can very quickly save it, and then you're done. So here, well, you can see also another example in which you can see like the differences between the two selected permission sets at the field level, also including the different like CRUD operations we can do, either create, read, edit, or delete. And obviously, when I'm saving, I can select if I want to save this as a permission set group, as a permission set, and so on. And finally, this is the import option. So then, continuing on the results. So we have now obviously a much faster time to value and an experience for the consultants and the admins as well, because this is not just for the beginning of the implementation. As I was saying, with this tool, in every upgrade, we can also make it easier for the admins. We also have now a very thorough documentation of the content of each permission set group and each permission set, very well aligned with business process. And then we also have now a unified approach and guidelines that are now followed theoretically by all development teams for the new features, so that we don't continue creating this permissions debt. So what's next? So you're wondering, like, okay, we have done now this for permissions, but permissions are not the only thing we need to set up for a user. So we want to make it even easier for consultants to deploy users. So typically, as I was saying, not just for consultants, but also for admins to administer users. For example, you're in a big company, you have new joiners almost every day that you need to add to your Salesforce org. You have promotions, you have people leaving the business. So this is a very typical task of admins every day. So what we are now working on, and it's going to be released in winter 2023, so just in about 2 months, it's something that is called Persona Workbench. So we are basically going to be expanding this not just to permissions, so including permission set groups and permission sets in the very first version, but then continuing with like layouts, apps, the utility bar, so everything that you can think of that could be added to a user that you want to have out of the box. So then obviously you have these out of the box personas that you can select in this Persona Workbench, and you can directly apply to personas. So we are also kind of building a new layer that allows you to create users. No, you don't need to go to the Salesforce setup to use that option. We have another layer in which we're going to have customizable fields. So we have just a reduced set of fields, obviously the most common fields that you populate when you're creating a user. But then in the next version, it will be customizable. So basically the goal is to also have less change of context, because sometimes when you go to the setup, there's a big change in the UI still. Hopefully this gets solved by Salesforce soon in the future. But then we are doing this without having to quit FinancialForce. And as I was saying, including all these elements, all this metadata, that is very key for every user. So we're just at the very beginning. We have the first version, as I was saying, in winter 2023, that is going to cover the permission set groups and permission sets. All right, well, apologies again for the technical problems. At least you were able to see some screenshots. And if you're interested a bit more on the process and any other elements around our journey to having this unified permission model, I don't know if we have time for questions. Okay, well, if you have any questions, yes, please.
So the permission set groups are personalized, so far as a group. How do you structure, name and label basically the permission sets beyond the permission set groups? What's the approach there?
Let me just try to show you, because that was one of the things that I wanted to show you before, but I couldn't. So this would be how the naming is structured. So you have the permission set group. As you can see, this is the name of the persona, warehouse manager. And then in the next level, which is the permission sets level, you see basically these jobs to be done, these business processes, if you will.
So basically say permission set equals the jobs to be done.
Yes, exactly. So this way is very easy for an admin and go and say, oh, I have this warehouse manager that I need to add to my system. So I'm gonna add the permission set group, and I know that by doing this user is gonna be able to manage the inventory infrastructure, initiate an inventory transfer, view items and inventory. Obviously, if, as I said, I want this warehouse manager to have some extra permissions, I can always do it by modifying it. And then this is the list of permission set groups that I couldn't show you. I don't know if the resolution is good enough, but in here you can see how you have like the PSA, which would be professional services, which is one of our products, and then you have the name of the persona, line manager, ops team member, project manager, and so on. And then you also have it for SCM, which is well, now called OPI, but you have pricing manager, procurement clerk, and so on. So this way, it's much easier for the admin to identify what to be added. So thank you for the question.
The users, are the users using Salesforce here, or do you use an external CRM for users?
Yeah, normally all our customers are using Salesforce as a CRM, because obviously FinancialForce is deployed on top of Salesforce, so they also have to pay for a Salesforce license. So then one of the powers of FinancialForce is being in Salesforce platform, having this unified database, so then they are mostly using the Salesforce as a CRM as well. I'm not completely sure about the statistics, but obviously it's already there, you have the license, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to be using a different CRM. We also have a lot of cross-product flows, long end-to-end flows that start in actually Salesforce. For example, opportunity to renewal. So you start with an opportunity in Salesforce, and then you get into a billing contract, which would be already in FinancialForce, and then you continue to a billing document, sales invoice, and transactions, which you finish in our accounting solution. So we have all these long end-to-end processes that start in Salesforce, but then finish in FinancialForce. So yeah, I would say that most of our customers are using Salesforce as their CRM. Obviously, we have other combinations. For example, some customers that use our professional services solution, they might have another accounting solution. But then obviously we're trying to bundle all our products around our customers. But then this is why we have also the external integrations. So for example, for managing expenses, our professional services solution manages expenses, but there's a lot of customers that use Concur from SAP. So then we also have a connector with Concur. So, but yeah, they are all in the Salesforce platform, and it's readily available for them to use.
So this solution to make it easy to administration and to be well organized. So when you have a lot of journal, so do you do some forecast or prevision to give the right license and the right permissions to receive?
You mean forecasting in which sense?
In sense,
if you need to acquire more licenses for the users?
So the next month, how many users will join the company, and which the right role, the right profile, and the right permission.
No, I don't think we have a tool yet. We're working on also on a system that is going to be doing some reporting on the users on the licenses you have in your system. So it's much easier. Like for example, you have acquired 500 licenses, and then you're only using like 300. Then you know exactly how many licenses left you have. But then this could also be a good way of saying, oh, I'm running out of licenses, I might need to buy some of them. But yeah, we don't have like forecasting per se based on the company growth or anything like that.
unfortunately, I use a different accounting system with my clients. And one of the pain points we have is about cash management, which that solution does not know. Do you offer some kind of cash management solution? So to say, I have X invoices to pay in next month.
Yes.
I will receive, I will cash in on X amount of invoices in next month. I can predict month over month how much cash I will have in my account.
Yes, we have some, I'm not the expert on the accounting side. These two guys here have a bit more understanding probably. They're next. But yeah, we have a revenue forecasting solution, and then we obviously have anything related to the record part of the accounting system. So your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, creating your journals, transactions, and then we also have integrations with payment systems, with, for example, throughout Alberto, which can help us like collect the payments. And then obviously we are managing all sales invoices, payable invoices, and all that. This is fully integrated into the Salesforce platform. So then this is obviously why our customers are choosing. So obviously, we are targeting customers that are already in the Salesforce platform, but then sometimes we are targeting customers that are not on Salesforce. They acquire us, and then they also do the transition to Salesforce as well. So obviously there is a lot of power of having the combination of Salesforce and FinancialForce, and the part you were mentioning is it is covered. Yes.